Welcome back, everybody, to Vietnam Legal and Investment Insights. Today, we're going to do a deep dive into something that's really super important for any company that wants to, expand through franchising in Vietnam, and that is, of course, trademark registration.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
It's a big one and especially important here in Vietnam. The franchise market is growing really rapidly and attracting a lot of international businesses.
yeah, for sure.
So
Okay, so let's imagine we have a company, let's call them Coffee Cloud, and they are eager to bring their coffee experience to Vietnam through franchising. What are the must-knows about protecting their trademark here?
well, the first thing that Coffee Cloud needs to know is that Vietnam has a strong legal framework for trademarks, and it's based on the law on intellectual property. There's also other laws like the commercial law.
So it's not like they're stepping into a legal Wild West or something.
No, not at all. Vietnam's been consistently updating its laws to meet international standards. So that's really reassuring, I think, for foreign franchisors.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Hmm.
But where do they even begin? I mean, just thinking about navigating a foreign legal system,
Right.
that can be pretty daunting.
It can be, yeah. Let's break down a little bit. First, they need to get familiar with the National Office of Intellectual Property, or NOIP.
Okay.
That's the government body that handles trademark registrations in Vietnam.
So NOIP, that's kind of their one-stop shop for all things trademark.
Yeah, you could say that. And before Coffee Cloud goes ahead and files their application, they really need to do their homework. A thorough trademark search is really essential.
Oh, so they don't accidentally step on anybody's toes, trademark-wise.
Exactly. Imagine Coffee Cloud spends all this time and money setting up their franchise, only to find out that another company already has Coffee Cloud registered as a trademark. You know, a trademark search can really prevent that kind of nightmare scenario.
Yeah, for sure. I'm starting to understand why companies like Harley Miller exist.
Well, we try to make the process as smooth as possible. Once they've confirmed that their trademark is available, then they can start gathering all the necessary documentation.
Okay, let's talk paperwork. What kind of documents do they need?
Well, Article 100.1 of the Law on Intellectual Property actually lists everything. A declaration for registration. They'll need their certificate of incorporation proof of their trademark ownership,
Yeah.
and a really detailed description of the goods and services they plan to offer.
Sounds comprehensive.
Yeah.
Is it all in Vietnamese?
Some of it might need to be translated into Vietnamese.
Yeah, good thing Harley Miller can handle that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And here's another really important step. They need to categorize their goods and services using the NICE classification system.
Okay.
It's an international system that organizes trademarks, and Coffee Cloud needs to make sure they're protected in the right categories for their franchise.
So if they're serving coffee, they need to make sure they're not accidentally filed under car washes or something.
Exactly. It's all about making sure that their trademark protection is really accurately targeted.
Okay, so Coffee Cloud has filed their application, all their paperwork's in order. How long do they have to wait to find out if it's approved?
Well, patience is key when it comes to trademark registration. Typically, it takes between a year and a half.
Wow, that's a pretty significant waiting period.
Hmm.
What are some of the common reasons for those delays?
Sometimes the NOIP might have questions, or they might need some clarification on the application, or in some cases, there might be objections raised.
Okay, so having experts like Harley Miller to kind of guide you through this process can be really valuable.
Oh, absolutely. We help to anticipate potential issues and address them proactively, so that keeps things moving as smoothly as possible.
Okay, so let's assume Coffee Cloud has sailed through the process. They finally got their registration certificate. What's next?
That's a great question. You know, having that registration certificate is a major win, but it's really only the first step. The next crucial phase is building that trademark protection into their franchise agreements.
Okay.
And we can get into more details on those agreements later on.
Yeah. Sounds like we've covered a lot of ground already.
Yeah.
But before we dive deeper into those franchise agreements, let's take a quick break. Okay, so we've got Coffee Cloud. They've got their trademark registration in Vietnam, and they're ready to start signing those franchise agreements, spreading the coffee love.
Yeah.
But how do they make sure that their trademark is protected within those agreements?
Right. Well, that's where things get really interesting. Those franchise agreements, they need to be super clear about how that trademark can be used.
Yeah, I imagine there's a lot to consider.
Absolutely. The first thing is the scope of the trademark license. You know exactly how the franchise is allowed to use that Coffee Cloud trademark.
Okay.
That includes things like where they can use it, how they can use it, what specific purpose.
So it's about setting those boundaries and making sure that Coffee Cloud keeps control over their brand.
Exactly. Think of it as a blueprint to prevent any misunderstandings or, potential misuse of that trademark. And then another really important thing is quality control.
Oh, right. Because one bad cup of coffee at a coffee cloud could really damage the whole brand's reputation.
Exactly, you got it. The franchise agreement should have very clear quality standards that all the franchisees have to stick to. So that ensures that customers have a consistent experience across all the different locations.
Right.
And that protects the brand's reputation and the value of that trademark.
That makes sense.
Mm.
What about location? I mean, Coffee Cloud wouldn't want two franchisees like right across the street from each other competing for customers.
Yeah, territory restrictions, that's another key provision in these agreements.
Okay.
Coffee Cloud can actually specify where each franchisee is allowed to operate, so that prevents, unnecessary competition or market saturation.
So they're basically carving out a territory for each franchisee,
Yeah.
like pieces of a delicious coffee cake.
I like that analogy.
Okay.
And then one more important detail to consider is sublicensing.
Sublicensing. What's that?
So imagine a Coffee Cloud franchise decides to let another company use the trademark for some kind of promotion. That's sublicensing. And the agreement needs to address, whether that's allowed and under what specific conditions.
So again, it's all about maintaining control of the brand.
Right.
Nobody's using the Coffee Cloud trademark without permission.
Exactly.
Right.
All these provisions, along with a whole host of others, work together to protect Coffee Cloud's trademark. And it really lays the foundation for a successful and harmonious franchise relationship.
Okay, so we've got these ironclad franchise agreements in place. But what happens if somebody, decides to just go rogue and infringe on Coffee Cloud's trademark?
Well, unfortunately, trademark infringement does happen, even with the best precautions in place. But Vietnam has a really strong framework for enforcement.
Okay, so Coffee Cloud's not just left high and dry.
No, not at all. They have a few different options. One is they can pursue administrative action.
Okay, what does that look like?
So let's say someone starts selling counterfeit Coffee Cloud merchandise.
Okay.
Coffee Cloud can file a complaint with the NOIP or even with customs if they suspect those goods are being imported illegally.
So they're basically reporting it to the authorities and letting them handle it.
Exactly. And those authorities have the power to investigate. They can issue cease and desist orders, seize the counterfeit goods, and even impose fines on the infringers.
So there's some real consequences for people who try to mess with Coffee Cloud's trademark.
Yeah.
What if those administrative actions aren't enough? Are there other options?
Absolutely. If Coffee Cloud has suffered damages because of the infringement, they can take it to court.
Okay.
And that could involve, seeking compensation for lost profits, damage to their brand's reputation, or even the destruction of those counterfeit goods.
So they can actually, get some financial restitution for the harm that was caused.
That's right. And in severe cases, like really large-scale counterfeiting operations, criminal prosecution is even a possibility.
Wow. So the legal system really has their back,
It does.
ready to protect their trademark. That's reassuring.
Yeah, and Vietnam's commitment to intellectual property protection is also strengthened by their participation in all these international treaties.
Hold on. So their trademark protection doesn't just stop at Vietnam's borders.
No, it doesn't. You got it. Treaties like the Madrid Protocol, the Paris Convention, and the TRIPS Agreement all work to safeguard trademarks globally.
Okay. I'm intrigued. Tell me more about how those international agreements benefit Coffee Cloud.
Sure. So imagine Coffee Cloud is thinking about expanding to other countries.
Okay.
Instead of filing separate applications in each of those countries, the Madrid Protocol lets them file one application through Vietnam, and it can cover a whole bunch of other countries that are part of the Madrid system.
So it's kind of like a one-stop shop for international trademark registration.
Yeah, it is. It's incredibly efficient.
That's amazing.
And then there's the Paris Convention.
Okay.
That ensures that if Coffee Cloud files for a trademark in one member country, they have a certain window of time to file in other member countries and keep the same original filing date.
Oh, that's smart. So it's like reserving their spot in line in other countries.
Exactly. And that prevents someone else from swooping in and registering the trademark in another country while that application is pending.
Wow, that's a really good tip.
And then the TRIPS Agreement.
Okay.
That stands for Trade-Related Aspects of Intellectual Property Rights. It's a broad agreement that basically sets global standards for how intellectual property is protected.
So it's kind of setting the ground rules for how countries treat trademarks and things like that.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And all these international treaties, they really demonstrate Vietnam's commitment to creating a business-friendly environment, one that respects intellectual property rights.
Okay. I'm feeling a lot more confident about Coffee Cloud's chances of success in Vietnam now.
Good.
It seems like they've got a really strong legal framework to support them.
Yeah.
Robust enforcement mechanisms and even these international treaties backing them up.
Hmm.
But are there any, practical steps that they can take to kind of strengthen their trademark protection even further?
Yeah, that's a great question. At Harley Miller, we always emphasize a few best practices. First, register your trademarks early. Don't wait until you're ready to launch your franchise. You want to secure those rights as soon as possible.
So before they even enter the Vietnamese market, they should be thinking about this.
Absolutely. It's also really crucial to maintain detailed documentation of your trademark use. So keep records of how and where you're using your trademark marketing materials, advertising campaigns. All of that can be really valuable if you ever need to defend your trademark rights.
It's like building a keys file just in case.
Exactly. And of course, we've talked about the importance of clear and comprehensive trademark protection clauses in your franchise agreements, but it's worth reiterating because it's so important.
Yeah, those agreements are your first line of defense.
They are. And finally, we always recommend setting up regular monitoring programs. That means, actively searching for any unauthorized use of your trademark, both online and in the physical marketplace.
So you're not just sitting back and waiting for something to happen, you're actually being proactive.
Exactly. Catching infringement early on can really save you a lot of headaches and legal battles down the road. And of course, robust quality control procedures are really essential as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. Maintaining the quality and consistency of your products or services that helps protect your brand reputation, which in turn strengthens your trademark.
Exactly. All these measures really work together to create a comprehensive shield for your brand.
This has been really insightful. Trademark protection is clearly a complex but very important aspect of franchising in Vietnam.
It is. And with the right knowledge and strategies, franchisors can navigate that legal landscape and achieve remarkable success in this thriving market.
And if our listeners are feeling a bit overwhelmed, where can they turn for some expert guidance?
Well, I might be a bit biased, but I'd highly recommend reaching out to Harley Miller Law Firm. We have a team of experienced intellectual property lawyers who specialize in assisting franchisors.
They've got your back.
We do.
So before we wrap up, any final thoughts or key takeaways you want to leave our listeners with?
I would say the most important takeaway is that trademark protection is an investment in your brand's future. It's not just a legal formality, it's a strategic imperative for any franchisor who wants to succeed in Vietnam.
It's about protecting your hard work, your reputation,
Yeah.
all the value that you've built over time.
Exactly. And with the right legal partner, you can navigate all the complexities, mitigate the risks, and really unlock the full potential of the Vietnamese franchise market.
And for anyone listening who wants to learn more about Harley Miller Services, you can find their contact info in the show notes. Be sure to check out their website, too, for more resources and insights on doing business in Vietnam.
It's been a pleasure joining you today for this deep dive into trademark registration.
And a huge thank you to all our listeners for tuning in to Vietnam Legal and Investment Insights. We'll be back soon with another insightful episode to help you navigate the Vietnamese business landscape. Until then, keep those coffee beans brewing and those franchises flourishing. It's interesting as we've been talking about Coffee Cloud's journey, it really strikes me that Vietnam has really stepped up its game when it comes to supporting franchisors.
Yeah, it really has. The legal framework around trademarks and franchising has become much more, clearer and more accessible, I think, in recent years.
That's great to hear. But let's be honest, navigating those legal processes can still be intimidating, especially in a foreign country. What resources are available to help companies like Coffee Cloud?
Well, one great resource is the National Public Service Portal. It's an online platform, and it really streamlines that whole trademark registration process.
So no more mountains of paperwork.
That's the idea. The portal guides applicants through each step, so it makes it much more efficient and transparent.
So Vietnam is really committed to making things easier for businesses.
Absolutely. And this user-friendly approach, it extends to other aspects of franchising as well.
Well, it sounds like we've covered just about everything today. We've talked about the legal framework, we've gone deep into those franchise agreements, and we even touched on those international treaties. Coffee Cloud should be well equipped to protect their trademark and really thrive in the Vietnamese market.
They should. And if they need any guidance along the way, they know where to find us.
That's right. Harley Miller Law Firm is here to help franchisors navigate all the ins and outs of trademark registration and franchising in Vietnam. Our team of experienced lawyers can provide that support and expertise they need to succeed.
We're passionate about helping businesses like Coffee Cloud achieve their franchising goals.
For anyone listening who's interested in learning more about Harley Miller services, you can find all their contact details in the show notes. And be sure to check out their website as well for more resources and insights on doing business in Vietnam.
It's been a pleasure joining you today for this deep dive into trademark registration.
And a huge thank you to all our listeners for joining us here on Vietnam Legal Investment Insights. We'll see you next time with another insightful episode to help you navigate the Vietnamese business landscape. Until then, keep those coffee beans brewing and those franchises flourishing.